Let's start this review off with a huge positive for Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. So all 5, 6 past Resident Evil films pale far in comparison to this new one, this new reboot. This new reboot, they tried desperately to connect the story and everything to the video games. And before this one, all of the other Resident Evils, they kind of had Easter eggs and the like, but mainly the older past Resident Evil films were just complete garbage. The first one, I'll even say the second one, and Extinction, in my personal opinion, they were chaotic fun, but after those, they just turned into tedious, chaotic gore fests with minimal everything, if not anything in them except gore. This new Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, which is written and directed by, I believe his name is Johannes Roberts, and I looked up his film history, and all of his films have been lukewarm at best and panned by critics before this one, and this one kind of the same. Now, personally, this is my personal opinion, Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, I fully believe this would have been a huge success if this were only directed by Johannes Roberts and he had a writing team for the story. The story's not terrible. The narrative's not terrible. The writing is awful. The dialogue is just way too forced, and the writing for the story is just terrible. Everything feels ham-fisted and forced in. And that's not even including the Easter eggs, honestly. I actually really appreciated everything that they tried to put into Welcome to Raccoon City from the games. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of Resident Evil. I really don't know that much about Resident Evil. The only games in Resident Evil I ever finished were Resident Evil 2, the remake, and Resident Evil 6. And unfortunately, I'm part of the 1% that likes Resident Evil 6. I thought the storytelling reminded me a lot of like the Game of Thrones type of storytelling, but it was definitely completely Michael Bay'd. Resident Evil 2 Remake, though, for PS4 Pro was outstanding. And they brought in a lot of that and a lot from the first, from what I know and recall, into Welcome to Raccoon City. They include literally shot-for-shot scenes from some of the games, and they implemented them into scenes in this film. And I did really appreciate that. I really appreciated the directing style and the filmmaking and the editing of this film, and including the score. The score, the editing, the direction, and all of that combined made a really well-made film. This is exactly why I say this could have been a huge success, because they had everything in this film for a good film in the filmmaking. What they failed continuously and immensely was the writing and the dialogue and even some of the actor choices. A lot of the actors and actresses, they are commendable and they're actually well chosen. Claire Redfield, for one, as the biggest one. I think that actress does a phenomenal job as Claire, especially the clothing. They do the clothing and the aesthetics of the characters justice. On the low end of the actor choices, we get Leon's actor. And don't get me wrong, his performance is commendable. He does what he can as Leon Kennedy. And as for playing and portraying Leon Kennedy, they really ramped up the whole Leon's dumb but intelligent factor into the entire film. And he was kind of a comedic punching bag, but he was also very relevant as a main protagonist for the film, just like the video games. But the actor himself, I don't know what they were thinking about choosing this actor. Again, this is not about his performance. He does a commendable job performing in the film. it's just how he looks. He doesn't look like Leon. He looks like a wannabe Chris Cornell. And that's really all I can say about his looks. He just looks like a wannabe Chris Cornell, not Leon Kennedy from Resident Evil. Now, they get his clothing. Actually, it looks pretty damn good. It's like Claire's clothing in the film. It's pretty damn accurate. And Wesker and Joe Valentine and the like, everybody. And I do appreciate that they added some form of backstory with, like, especially Claire and Chris Redfield. And then they also hinted at Leon's backstory of before he became a rookie and during his time as a rookie prior to being moved into Raccoon City. And I did appreciate that. I really wish that this would have been like a 2-hour film. That way they could have fleshed more on the diverse cast of characters. At least 2 hours. This is about an hour and 40-minute runtime. And for what they offer you, outside of the awful writing, for how the film is, how it's made and everything, they do a phenomenal job. The first 15 to 20 minutes, the intro, I was really hooked. And not just in the intro, but throughout the film, there are some scenes, like I said, where they take shot-for-shot scenes from the video games and implement them into this film. And I did really appreciate that. Now, I commend the filmmaking process in terms of making the film itself. But on the other side, I completely reject anything having to do with the writing of the story, the writing of the characters, the writing of the dialogue, the writing of the narrative. That's where this film falls. Not even just flat. The writing is just terrible. There are scenes, it's basically like this. You'll get one decently written scene, and then you'll get 3 or 4 just awfully written scenes. And that decent scene, like, in the scene itself, the characters actually portray smart, strong, empowered characters. But then in those awful scenes, they turn into just dumb, mediocre character choices and characters making stupid decisions throughout. Like, the first one, from what I recall, is the chief being in the parking lot and he's trying to fumble out his gun from his car and his man bag, I guess. And he's trying to fill the revolver with the bullets, and he got like 4 or 5 in, and then the mutant dog came out and started to attack him. And instead of thinking like a police chief, where, you know, you need to hold a weapon correctly, aim, look around your surroundings, look at your target where you're trying to aim. No, this dude literally just hears a sound and then starts shooting and blasting everywhere to the point where he ends up running out of bullets. Cliche horror tactics and plot devices. And then he gets saved. Another cliche plot device on top of already mediocre and cliche plot devices. And those are riddled throughout this film, and I wanted to pull my hair out. Because we don't just get those kind of scenes, we get the scenes where the characters just act stupidly. They make stupid decisions. So overall, this is not at all a terrible video game adaptation made as film. Honestly, this is probably one of my favorite video game adaptations in film. It's not good by any means, but I was really drawn in to the ambiguity in the filmmaking, the score, the surroundings, the direction of it. It really immerses you into the setting, into Raccoon City, into Raccoon City Orphanage, into the backstory, the lore, the zombies. And the zombies themselves, I didn't really see that much of a diversity in the zombies. There were, I'd say, 3 different types throughout the whole film. The walkers and then the mutant zombies. But I was still fully immersed. The thing that just kept pulling me and pulling me and pulling me out of it, the god-awful writing. the writing is terrible. It's like they get great filmmakers to make great video game adaptations, and then they get mediocre to just god-awful writers, because it just seems like big companies don't care about the stories. They just kind of care about how it looks. And Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City looks like Resident Evil. It's basically played like Resident Evil. It even feels like Resident Evil, but it doesn't run through the dialogue and everything, through the characters. It screams awful, mediocre, terrible. So overall for me, I'm just kind of 50-50 with Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. Before this one, all the other Resident Evils, the live action Resident Evils, I would say every single one was between a 0 to 3, maybe 4, with the highest one. This one gets a lot of things very well done and highly successful, but then they fail immensely in a lot of other places. So again, I'm 50-50 on this. So overall for me, Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City is a 5 out of 10, and there is a post-credit scene that does fit in well, and it does add more characters into the story, and the post-credit scene with the characters that are introduced, they actually look like the characters too. So I do have to commend them for that. Most characters, most actors and actresses in this film, they look pretty spot on, and then there are some that just don't at all. So 5 out of 10, Welcome to Raccoon City. Thank you.